Alright, people. Review of the week time. So, there's four cards. Well, not really four cards. There was four main cards over the weekend, but we're only going to talk about a select few fights from each. The one we're mainly going to focus on is obviously the Canelo Charlo card. That's the one where I had the most intriguing fights. But we'll start with some of the fights that happened over the course of the weekend. Let's start with Otto Wallin, Murat Gassiev. That is interestingly the only fight that they have a record of on BoxRec of the results. The rest of them, they're all, there's still a fight on here that has TBA next to the guy, so they weren't keeping track of the undercard, certainly not. It was the only kind of fight on this card that any of us really cared about. It was the only fight that many of us wanted to watch. I got very lucky. I found a very good stream that didn't buffer at all. It was pretty much live. I was very lucky with that. I literally just typed in, someone asked me on the comment section with the other, how did I find, I literally just typed in Oliver Lane on Twitter, hit latest, and boom, there it was. I was like, I'll have that. In terms of the fight, it was just, it never really caught fire. There was moments in it, like, bizarrely, like, I really wouldn't have thought this now. Murat Gassiev, who's never really shown any issues in the chin department, and he is the much bigger puncher out of the two. Otto Wallin's not known as a big puncher, but Gassiev was the one who got staggered a bit in this fight. He got staggered towards the end of the sixth round. They both landed their shots simultaneously. Otto Wallin came off the better of the two, and Otto Wallin won a split decision. I've no complaints with him winning, but in terms of the fight, it never really caught fire the way I thought it would. I kind of feared that Gassiev would do something like that, where he would just, because I've seen him do it before in a couple of fights, when a guy is moving a bit, you're giving a bit of movement, popping a few shots out there, which is all Wallin was really doing. Gassiev just tends to follow the opponent around the ring. He's not really got any, he doesn't really think about what he's doing. He's just trying to land big shots. He's not really looking to set anything up. He's not looking to feint or anything like that. He's just looking to throw big looping shots, and you could say some of the shots he was landing were clean, they were effective. Some would give him the rounds on that, but others would like what Otto Wallin was doing, where he was moving, he was ring general, he was just throwing. He was basically just, he had a guy coming at him who was looking to throw hard shots, he was just getting out of the way, simple as, and outworking Gassiev. Otto Wallin deserved the win, I've no issue with that. The only issue I have is the 170 and 111 scorecard for Gassiev. I don't know what that judge was watching. He didn't win that many rounds, Jesus. Certainly, he didn't win 9 out of the 12. So Otto Wallin, this was sold as an eliminator, not a final eliminator, just an eliminator for the IBF. So it means that Otto Wallin will get a high ranking with them. It also probably means that what will happen is that there'll be another eliminator with another two contenders in the IBF rankings, which is normally how they do it. Then once Hrgovic gets his shot, whenever that may be, they'll probably order Wallin against whoever wins the other eliminator to fight in a final eliminator, and then they'll be mandatory. That's how it works. When you hear eliminator, it doesn't mean, if you hear final eliminator, that means that the winner is mandatory. But if you hear just a normal eliminator, it's just them trying to get the contenders who will fight in that final eliminator to get the world title shot. So Otto Wallin is essentially true. We'll call it a semi-final, that's what we call it. He's true to the final. So whoever he fights, God only knows who. But that was the fight in a nutshell. I was real disappointed with Murat Gassiev. I expected more of him, I really did. He came in lighter for this fight as well than his previous fights, and I expected more. Credit to Otto Wallin, he got the job done. I wouldn't imagine, just based upon what I saw in that fight, I can't envision either of those guys causing any trouble in the upper echelons. Look, it's a win nonetheless. It's a win nonetheless, so I'll take that away from him. In terms of the Sky card, there was only one fight that I watched, which was the fight in which Jemmy TKV, as he likes to be known, had that horrendous cut over the bridge of his eye. It was terrible. He fought this guy, Igor Mikado, I think is how you pronounce that name, Brazilian, who was 12 and well, he was actually 11 and 1 with 11 KOs going into this fight. Set an early pace, and wow, did he open a bad cut. It was a right hand that went in. Holy hell. That's one of the worst cuts. And as soon as I seen it, I was like, that referee stopping that fight. And rightfully so. He should have stopped it, because that was so deep and the blood was literally bulging out of it. I was like, damn. That's one of the worst cuts I've seen in a long time. A long, long time. that was bad, like really, really bad. So he's going to have some serious scar tissue there. And yeah, I seen Billy Joe Saunders posting a picture on Instagram or a video where he was saying that McAdoo's gloves looked a little bit used. Well, he was basing it off the Adidas, because he was using Adidas gloves, the Adidas sign being a bit worn. That will happen with gloves though. You know, that will happen, and there's nothing about those gloves that I saw in that video that made me look and say, actually, nothing like that. Absolutely nothing like that. So there's that. The DAZN card, again, the only fight I was interested in was Jay Opetaia. I didn't watch any of the other fights on that card. The only one I was keen on seeing was Jay Opetaia. And to be honest with you, I wasn't keen on seeing Jay Opetaia because I expected a really competitive fight with Jordan Thompson or anything like that. No, I thought this... to be honest with you, I got the fight I pretty much thought we would get. A very one-sided fight. But I thought, and this is not a knock on Opetaia, I honestly thought that we were looking at a maybe 1-2, possibly 3 round job. It went to the 4th round, which is longer than I thought it would go, to be honest with you. I don't think anyone was giving Jordan Thompson a prayer. It was a severe mismatch. Really was. Jay Opetaia is a very good fighter. Very good. Best cruiserweight in the world for my money. And I've heard Tyson Fury is looking to get him in camp for the Alexander Usyk fight, which we'll talk about now. We get the fights out of the way first. And if that's true, and Jay Opetaia said, he'd be willing to do it, that is probably the best sparring you can get to go into a fight with Alexander Usyk. The best, because Jay Opetaia, he's not quite Alexander Usyk, he's not like that, but and wasn't Tyson Fury before the Ngannou fight, wasn't we hearing Opetaia rumoured as an opponent? So for him to spar Tyson Fury for Usyk, that would be beneficial greatly to Tyson Fury, greatly. In terms of the fight itself, as I said, it was a fairly easy win. Well, it was dominant, it was one-sided. Tony Sims really could have stopped it after the 3rd round, to be honest with you, instead of letting him go out for the 4th round. And Howard Foster was, we could play it about Howard Foster. He was bang on the money. This was a one-sided fight, very, very, very one-sided fight. So Jay Opetaia, he's got a mandatory, Myris Briedis, who was there actually with the zone. Briedis hasn't fought since that fight. He's getting on there now, so the inactivity, how will that fare? Look, repeat revenge, more convincingly this time for Jay Opetaia, I reckon. It's a mandatory, so the IBF, they're strict with them, they will enforce that. So let's see what he does after that. I'd love to see him against, Chris Billman-Smith or Lawrence Okoli. I think he beats both of them. I think he beats Richard Riakporhe, but I think he beats, pretty much everyone at cruiserweight, certainly. I think he's really going to, when he goes to heavyweight, that's when we might see him struggle. But at cruiserweight, I think he's better than Billman-Smith. I think he beat Lawrence Okoli. Wouldn't surprise me if Eddie Hearn looked to do that fight, just, to try and, even if it was a case of having it on Boxer or someone like that, just to kind of rub salt in the wounds for Ben Shalom and give Okoli another L. Wouldn't shock me. But great performance from Jay Opetaia, albeit it was to be expected. Now we get to the Canelo Alvarez card. Frank Sanchez defeated Scott Alexander. Frank Sanchez needs to step it up. I like Frank Sanchez. I think he's a very, very underrated fighter at heavyweight. I think he's a real dark horse in the division. I really do. I think he can really, really turn a lot of the guys over. He's a really talented fighter. He's not pushed on since the Jagba. And that's not good enough. Scott Alexander just isn't good enough for a fighter of his calibre. He needs to push on. And some would say that he's with PBC, they won't keep him active. And that's true. That's true. I definitely take that into consideration. If that's the case, then maybe he needs to look elsewhere, because he has so much talent. I want to see a fighter as talented as him fulfill it. And I think that you put him in with a Fury and an Usyk, I'm not confidently picking either Fury nor Usyk to beat Frank Sanchez. I would pick them, but I wouldn't be saying, it's easy for both. Hell no. I think that he gives both of those guys nightmares. Erickson Lubin got a win there last night against Jesus Alejandro Romanas Jr. It's a good win for Erickson Lubin. I thought he was really kind of coming near the end after the Fundora loss, but if you forget, he's only 28 years old. Still a chance that Erickson Lubin can do something. Mario Barros dropped a couple of times. Ugas, Yordenis Ugas. I think I was going to call him Yornel Dorticos, because that's on my mind. No, Yordenis Ugas. He beat Yordenis Ugas. Mario Barros, I think that was an eliminator of sorts. Yeah, it was for the interim WBC title, so that would make him mandatory for Terence Crawford. Mario Barros, in-house fight. I guess you could say. But also you could say it's the same with a fight against Boots Ennis. Wouldn't mind seeing him against Boots Ennis, to be honest with you. That'd be an interesting fight. I favourite Boots Ennis heavily. Wouldn't mind seeing. Imagine that if they fought, like, you'd have an interim IBF versus you'd have the unification of the interim titles. Jeez, that'd be an achievement, wouldn't it? But yeah, good win for Mario Barros over Ugas, who I think that's probably the end of him, because that's back-to-back losses now. His previous fight was against Spence. He was beaten up pretty badly in that fight, so there's that. And obviously the main event was Alvarez versus Charlo. Canelo Alvarez winning 12-round unanimous decision. Charlo, it was easy for Alvarez, and a lot of people were talking about the performance Charlo put in, or lack thereof, and definitely, he probably argue only won a round or two being generous. Canelo certainly looked a lot better. He looked to have a lot more stamina left in the tank towards the back end of the fight. He was picking the shots together very well, and overall I just thought Canelo looked very good in there. Charlo, did I expect more? Hell yeah. He really didn't do an awful lot in there. Like I said, it was kind of like Callum Smith, although I think Charlo did do more than Callum Smith. He did, but not all that much more. Yeah, I don't know what he's going to do from there like that. Some would argue that he didn't try, and definitely looked that way. It's the same with Callum Smith, to be honest with you. I mean, he really looked like, just pay me and let me go home. That was all it kind of looked like with Callum Smith. To a lesser extent, Charlo in this fight as well. But I do still think when I look at Canelo in that fight, he definitely looked better than he did in his last couple. He definitely did. So they are the fight cards in a nutshell. Now, let's have an old look-see at the boxing news. And obviously, the main talking point, now we've got the fight cards out of the way, the main talking point has got to be the news we got on Friday, which is, of course, Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk signed. Now, when news of that broke, it was Mike Coppinger reporting on it. I'm actually trying to find the article here. Here we go. It was Mike Coppinger who originally broke that news, and we were kind of like, okay, Mike Coppinger is normally reasonably good, but at the end of the day, we've heard this before, stuff like that. Then Frank Warren said it, then Fury said it, then Crosshook said it, and then Usyk started retweeting it as well, and tweeting saying it was good. So it was like, okay, now we're seeing a bit of validity to this. Now we're starting to dare to dream, as they say, that we may very well get this fight. Frank Warren, in a TalkSport interview, said that the date will officially be announced after Fury versus Ngannou. I know Francis Ngannou started tweeting saying, I still have the... Look, no disrespect, mate, but no one thinks you're going to win. No one thinks you're going to win. At all. You shouldn't win. Fury is an active fighter. It's not like, Fury is, 45 years old and he's not boxed in 10 years and he's lost a lot of weight, where you might say, okay, you never know if he's in his prime, you never know. This is an active Tyson, reasonably active Tyson Fury, who is now going into a fight against Alexander Usyk, number 1 and number 2, whichever way you have it, I don't care. Yeah, you ain't winning. Ain't gonna happen. Right? So, Usyk Fury, look, I am absolutely ecstatic about this fight. It's been frustrating seeing how it's dragged out this long over the last year, basically. Part of me wonders, was this all done intentionally by both Fury and Usyk in order to get the maximum amount of attention on this fight, have as many people talk about it as they can? Because obviously, if it had happened, we'll say in March or April this year, it would have done very good, no doubt. Regardless where it was, whether it was in Wembley or whether it was in Saudi, it would have done very good. But over the last 6 to 8 months, it's really simmered. We've been talking about it on here. A lot of us have been doing videos on it, and I wonder if that's also helped the fact that there has been a lot of backlash, certainly for Tyson Fury, that it looked like he was ducking the fight, and that's how it was. It was moving the goalpost back in April. You're going back to just last year, even January, where you John Fury sowing the seeds, and you also had Sugar Hill Stewart with the Lawrence Okoli situation, where he was over to train Okoli, not Fury, and he even said he had a plane ticket home. So there was all that. Saying that, we were all talking about it, and I wonder if the pressure has finally got to them and they said, right, let's do this. And I also wonder if the fact that Usyk looked a little bit vulnerable against Dubois has also helped the situation. Because if you remember back to when Canelo was ducking Triple G back in the day, back in 2016, when he was fighting at Canelo weight. And he was saying the excuse was that I'm not a middleweight, despite the fact he was coming into the ring heavier than most middleweights for his fights. And he was fighting at 155 pounds, defending the WBC middleweight world title. And then when the WBC, actually, it's one of the few times they ever put their foot down on a cash cow, was in 2016 after Canelo fought Amir Khan, when they ordered him to fight Triple G. He vacated that title, and he had a few words to say of the WBC. He went and fought Liam Smith at 154, and then Mr. I'm not a middleweight went up to 160. Well, he actually catch weight 164 and a half to fight Chavez Jr. During which time Triple G looked a little bit against Kell Brook, a welterweight, and then I thought he lost against Danny Jacobs. At that point, it was like, we're having to fight, and that's how we got the Triple G fight. He looked vulnerable. I wonder, is Fury doing that with Alexander Usyk? You know, that personally for me, that Dubois fight was not like watching Kell Brook Golovkin or like watching Jacobs Golovkin. It was not like that at all. You know, Usyk for me looked very good against Daniel Dubois. Slowed down after he was hit with the body shot, low blow, whatever you want to call it. Slowed down after that, yeah. But for the most part, and even then, he was still in control. Like, he looked fine. For me, he looked fine against Daniel Dubois. So, you know, it's going to be an interesting fight. I'm looking forward to seeing when they'll announce the date. The talk of the end of December. And interestingly, I was watching Boxing King Media. They interviewed Eddie Hearn post the show in Wembley. And the way Hearn was speaking about it, you would think with Hearn, right, if there was any kind of doubt or anything like that, or if he had heard that it's only whispers, he would be kind of animated in saying that. No, he was pretty much saying, yeah, like this looks like it's going to be good to go. He would obviously he'd be in the know. Obviously, he's not promoting it, but he'd be in the know. And he was saying, you know, yeah, look, it's good to go. And he even mentioned something interesting. He said that they want to get the fight signed before the IBF or the mandatory for Filip Hrgović, because obviously the talk was Hrgović saying that, you know, he's not going to step aside. And there was talk a couple of weeks ago that the mandatory was going to get called that week. It never happened. And now that this fight is signed, it means is that, well, I could be wrong here with this, but does that mean that Hrgović isn't entitled to any step-aside money? Because if the mandatory's not been called, well then, you know, they can, you know, unifications trump mandatories. So if it's not been called, does that mean Hrgović can't get step-aside money? Different if the mandatory was called, then obviously you'd have to negotiate and you'd have to give him step-aside, but if it's not been called, does he have any, can he barter? Can he really say, okay, I want this? No, I don't think he can. Correct me if I'm wrong, but judging by what Eddie Hearn was saying in the interview, that's the kind of vibe I was getting. That kind of Hrgović is kind of just going to have to wait now because the fight is done, you know, by all accounts. And look, I'm happy about it. I really am. We've been waiting long enough for this fight. And first undisputed champion since 1999. Man, in case you can't already tell, I'm excited about it. I am. I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to it. I am one of these people who, you know, I believe we're getting it. I do. I believe we're getting it. A fight that we are getting is Demetrius Andrade versus, well, apparently, Demetrius Andrade versus Dave Benavidez, November the 25th in Las Vegas or Texas. WBC interim world title on the line, mandatory for Canelo Alvarez. Now, people were saying to me, you know, gee, Demetrius Andrade, he has a chance. For me, prime Demetrius Andrade was at 154 pounds. That was where he was at his best. And that's where he would have done a lot of good work. To middleweight to an extent, but 154 was his division when he was in his prime. Inactivity, bad management, bad career moves, all that has really hampered Demetrius Andrade's career, I feel. Because I feel that there is a lot more to... He's a two-weight world champion, yes, but I feel there was a lot more in him. And I feel that the big fights at middleweight at 154, he would have beaten the guys like your Erislandy Laras. And I think even at 154 against Canelo, you bear in mind it's a much younger Canelo than what we have now. That would have been a real... And I think he would have beaten Billy Joe if they had fought in 2018, I do. And it's a shame that we didn't get to see that fight. Now with Demetrius Andrade, I don't think it's... I think he's well past it. Well, not well past it, but I think he's past it. Going in there against a young, hungry, flipping massive, huge, insanely big 168 pounder in Benavidez. I think he's going to get gobbled up and spat back out. That's what I think is going to happen. Speaking of Billy Joe Saunders, I also seen Ben Davison tweet some pictures of him having Billy Joe Saunders on the pad. Billy Joe, according to William Hill, has declared that he is going to return to boxing with a fight in December. He's planned to come back at light heavyweight and then get back down to super middleweight next year. Apparently, he's going to be with Ben Davison. Ben Davison's already shown some images of him back in the gym. I think is it the performance? I think it's in Brentwood is where Ben Davison's gym is. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure I think that's where his gym is. So yeah, Billy Joe making a comeback. I expect him to do virtually nothing. He's going to come back against someone who's not going to be particularly good. Light heavyweight, for God's sake, is not Billy Joe's weight. Billy Joe Saunders. Dominic Ingle even said this a couple of years ago, that realistically he should have started his career and spent a good part of his career at 154 pounds, not even middleweight. He was just too lazy to do that weight. He fought at middleweight. Then his last fight at middleweight was against David Lemieux. Let me forget that he hasn't made 160 since 2017. He never made it again after that. He went to 168, which was not his division, and he won a world title against Sufi, I think the guy's name was, and the guy who wasn't even that good. And then obviously held it. I think who did he defend? He defended against that Esteban Caracas guy, the Argentinian, who was a career 160 pounder. So again, like not even fighting a 168 pounder. Then he fought Martin Murray, who'd retired a couple of years prior, and he was meant to fight in 2018 in the O2. That fight got binned twice. Fought him behind closed doors in December 2020, and then fought Alvarez, fairly lackluster run at middleweight, or super middleweight to be fair, culminating in a fight with Canelo, which made him a lot of money. And obviously he wants to top up the funds, I would imagine, which is why he's coming back, because I can't envision Billy Joe doing it now at this point. God only knows what he's been doing away from boxing, because I've heard rumours about him even when he was in his prime, and God only knows the type of stuff he's been up to in the last 2 and a bit years since the Canelo fight. I don't even want to know. I don't want to think about it. So I imagine he is going to be absolutely shot to pieces when he comes back. He's looking for a big fight. That's all he's going to be doing. He's going to be looking for a big fight. Matchroom have a couple of up-and-coming super middleweights, Berlanga, and that other fighter who, again, his name always escapes me. He's fighting that guy, Esteban Marcelo Caracas, I think is how you pronounce his name, in November. Yeah. That guy's name always escapes me, but he's a very talented super middleweight, very talented. Or he may look to fight Chris Eubank Jr. In fact, Chris Eubank Jr. may look to fight Billy Joe, because that's an avenge of a loss. And yes, Chris Eubank Jr., I would comfortably pick him now to beat Billy Joe Saunders. 100% comfortably. Might even stop Billy Joe if he's that badly depleted. Seriously. Speaking of Ben Davison as well, Boxing King Media revealed that Anthony Joshua is now doing some training with Ben Davison, taking over before returning to camp with head trainer Derek James, manager KD revealed. So AJ doing a little bit of training with Ben Davison. That's interesting, because Ben Davison, obviously Billy Joe Saunders will be in there. Billy Joe Saunders, I'm going to use the word was, because I haven't seen him with Tyson Fury in a long time, 2 years now. And when Fury's fought, like when he fought Dylan White and Chisora, Billy Joe used to be in his entourage, not there now. So, and obviously Ben Davison trained Tyson Fury, so it's interesting that AJ is training with, he's obviously not training full time with Ben Davison, taking over with him, but that's interesting the way he's in camp with Ben Davison. That's very interesting, of all the places. And I guess as well, like, it's taking him again out of his comfort zone, because AJ was normally always up in Sheffield, with the GB squad. So I'm pretty sure Ben Davison's gym is in Brentwood, which is in Essex. It's not far outside London. You get the Elizabeth line that'll bring you to Brentwood. That's interesting. And being there with Billy Joe Saunders, all right. I mean, again, I'm looking at that and I'm like, really? He's going to be there, Billy Joe Saunders? Okay. And Ben Davison, of all people, it's like, okay. A little bit strange, not something you'd expect, but there you go. Boxing is, it's not that strange. Like, obviously, he's not going to be training full time with Ben Davison. He's going to go back to Derek James. You would imagine. What else do we have? Because we got big news this week, but we didn't get like load of news, if that makes sense. So and I think this video's gone long anyway, so I don't want to keep it too long. I see Bob Arum saying that Fury is set to make significantly over 100 million for the Ngannou fight and the Usyk fight. I don't know the numbers, but it's a lot more than 100 million. Jesus Christ. Serious amounts of money. That's crazy. That's crazy. Money talks at the end of the day. I guess that's the only way we were ever going to get this fight. But look, we got the fight. That's the main thing. So that's pretty much it. Like, there's not been that much other than the cards and the Billy Joe, the Joshuas, stuff like that. There's not really been that much this week to talk about, or last week I should say, to talk about other than that. So I'm going to leave it there. This is going to go up Monday morning. Definitely not going to go. What time is it now? Like, it's 20 to 10, so it's not going to go up tonight. It's going to go up Monday morning. I hope you enjoyed the video, people. Smash that like button if you could. At this minute in time, at 20 to 10 on a Sunday night, at the time we're recording this, we are 7 subs off 13,200. So we've 13,193. Hopefully we get to that's a quick. I only hit 13k last Saturday, I think. Was it last Saturday? I think it was last Saturday. Saturday just gone. So we're back on the 100 subs a week bandwagon. You know, it's been pretty much 100 subs, sometimes 200 subs a week since the end of July. We are easily gonna hit, hopefully anyway, gonna hit 15k if we can up that a little bit by the end of the year. Imagine that. 50 start this year with not even 10k. We might end it. Now when I say not even 10k, we were this close to 10k at the start of the year. We hit it in January, but we could end it with 15, which would mean next year 20k should be a walk in the park. And next year is going to be a flipping massive year for the channel because we're branching out next year. It'll be massive. But for this year, we still have time to go. Keep the likes going, keep the views up, keep the subs going. We'll push this channel on. It's been brilliant. It's been really, really good as of late. And yeah, it's going strength to strength. Get to more events, get to more shows, see a bit more backstage stuff, and hopefully let's see where we can go. Let's see what we can do. We're crossing everything. In terms of everything else, I hope you all have a great week. I hope someone gets good news, whether it be me or whether it be a sub. I hope someone, with the amount of people who watch it, someone's bound to have a good week. I hope you all have a good one. I'll leave it there, people. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe on the way in or on the way out. For now, I'll leave you with that. Peace.